Florida reached another significant milestone today. More than 500,000 people in the state have been infected with coronavirus since the global pandemic reached Florida 5 months ago. And an additional 225 deaths were recorded since yesterday. Locally, there were 5. The oldest was 94 years old, the youngest 40. News4Jax has several reporters covering new updates tonight on coronavirus. We begin with reporter Jim Piggott, who's been looking at hospitalization trends. And Jim, a doctor told you they're starting to see slightly older patients in the hospital who are staying longer.
Well, that's right. According to Baptist Health, they're telling us what they're seeing is another trend. You know, we've known that hospitalizations have been slightly declining for some time now. And what we're seeing that now is some older patients are now beginning to make their way back into the hospitals. We can see that statewide. The numbers average right now about 40 years old. But just about a month ago, those numbers were in the 20s and 30-year-olds. Here in Jacksonville and a good part of North Florida, we've been watching as the number of people in our hospitals being treated for the coronavirus is slightly down compared to a month ago. Dr. Elizabeth Ransom of Baptist Health is not ready to say if that's a trend that will stay with us. She adds there's something else that's happening as well.
We have noticed that although our overall number of cases that we're seeing coming through the emergency department is slightly decreasing. We're also noticing that our patients are now staying a little bit longer. I think as we've talked about before, this second phase, it was generally a younger population and they weren't as sick and the length of stay was shorter than what we saw in the initial phase. That has crept up slightly.
When you're talking about you're seeing patients stay maybe a little bit longer than before, is it because their symptoms are more severe or what would you say?
Well, it's hard to say. I think the age is increasing ever so slightly is something that we're seeing. So, but to a very minimal degree. But we're keeping a close eye on it.
Right now, there's no reason as to why this is happening. There have been concerns in the past that younger, healthier people could pass it on to those more vulnerable. You know, and I did ask Mayor Curry about this today, about the hospitalization numbers. He says we still all have to keep our guard on and keep our mask on in order to protect the population. Coming up on new at 6 o'clock, we're going to hear more from Dr. Ransom as she talks about what could happen next. And they really are looking at when students go back to school. We're live on the South Bank. Jim Piggott, Channel 4, the local station.